Evening, everyone, in the chat and out in the wide web. I'm joined once again, by my buddy Doc, and for a night of venting, ranting, and general shenanigans, shall we say. Sorry, I had to mute my other speaker because I forgot to do that.
I heard it.
Yeah. I'm on vacation this week, so brain capacity is a little less than normal.
This is why none of us are professionals.
I'm a professional idiot. That's about it. Doc, how you doing, man? It's been a while.
I am great, sir. I am great. Man, I swear to God, you always catch me like right before or right after I'm going out of town. Because next week I'm going out to LA.
I mean, my timing in general is either really, really good or I have none at all.
Hey, that works.
Sometimes. Sometimes it does not. And this week we are also joined by my buddy Javane. Man, what's going on? It's been a while.
It has been a while. We're glad to be back on the show, and I'm also a professional. Some people say I'm a professional joke, but hey, I don't listen to people like that anyway. But I'm glad to be back on the show. Glad to be back on the show, and hoping to have as much fun as I did last time, talking about whatever comes up and whatever comes to mind. So yeah, glad to be here.
And we are also supposed to be joined by Pele Comics, and hopefully he'll be here. He sent me a message saying he's going to be late, but hopefully it won't be too late, and he'll be able to join us. And this time we won't have to worry about him dealing with the aftermath of a hernia surgery.
Okay, that's right, my man. All right.
So. I mean, he was good conversation even while he was uncomfortable, but let's hope, the conversation's still just as good, if not better, and he doesn't have the discomfort.
Yeah,
absolutely. So
one of the things I wanted to bring up, Doc, I'm sure you've seen this. Javane, have you seen the cover for Kamala Khan becoming a mutant?
No, I have not seen that. I usually don't pay attention to her. But...
Well, my first response was, these fuckers had the balls to do this. They're using the cover from Uncanny X-Men 101.
They're also they've done a bunch of homage covers.
And if you're not sure which cover 101 is, that's the first appearance of Phoenix, and that's the one with Jean Grey coming out of the water, and all you see looks like the X-Men are around her drowning.
Yep.
They used that.
They also did an homage, like the A cover is an homage to Miss Marvel #1, like the first issue of her solo series.
Isn't a bad thing.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I mean, except for now, instead of wearing her Miss Marvel costume, she's wearing this fucking mutant basic bitch X-Men costume.
And the scary part is it's better than her original costume.
It really is. That is the very much sad part. But they're doing a shit ton of homages. We were talking about it before we went on air. They're also doing a new X-Men #114 homage cover. If you don't remember that's the first Grant Morrison issue, where it's like all of the like the new X-Men wearing their like black biker gear, like just silhouettes of them walking out from with like some like yellowish orangish background.
Yep.
If you remember that one. Yeah. So sure, why the fuck not? I think there's a couple more.
Probably is, or there will be, but I just find it funny that a lot of the people who were standing for Miss Marvel are now really unhappy with this. And it's
thought she was dead.
Well, it's one of,
like last week.
Like you could tell who hasn't read comic books for a long period of time, because the three of us, we've been, for a while now, we've seen characters get killed and come back. The two big ones would be Superman, and Wolverine.
Did that really count though?
Well, I honestly think when it came to Wolverine, they wanted to keep him dead and just use X-23 and Old Man Logan. But the backlash was just
nobody bought it.
Yeah,
nobody liked it, so they just kind of tapped out on that one.
And the Superman thing, I think they were always going to bring him back. And the backlash that came from that was from speculators thinking they had a gold mine on their hands.
By the way, there is yet another Miss Marvel homage cover. It's an homage to X-Men #1, like Uncanny X-Men #1. Oh, it looks like there's also an homage to X-Men 130, which would have been the first appearance of Dazzler. And there's a weird homage that I think is to Man of Steel, like Superman Man of Steel #1. Like,
really?
Yeah, this one I'm not sure. Hold on, let me see if I can share.
Should be able to.
Yeah, let's see. Yeah, this one. I know that's an homage to something. I can't remember what the fuck it is. Kind of reminds me of Man of Steel #1, but not. I'm blanking on what that is.
It looks like it belongs to a Superman book. It could also be maybe a reference to an issue of something with Carol Danvers.
Maybe, but all the other, if you look at most of the other, like this one is very obviously Uncanny X-Men 114. This one, X-Men #1.
Yeah.
Not sure. I think this is Iceman.
Could be. It looks like it might be.
Solo. This is definitely X-Men 130, Uncanny 130.
Yep.
I don't know what this one is. This one's bugging me too.
That one, as Fiend Machine in the chat said, could be a Spider-Man homage.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards Spider-Man homage or Miles Morales Spider-Man homage.
Right.
Now, and here's the one that we all obviously despise.
Yeah. Nothing like taking a major milestone issue and corrupting it.
Yep. I don't even know what this is. Betsy Cola homage?
No idea.
What?
Maybe it's a some old pinup girl or something.
I don't
Betsy
get it.
Cola.
Not a damn clue. Oh well, doesn't matter. They all suck. But
why are they making her a mutant again?
Because they already ruined the Inhumans both in the comics and in the MCU.
Gotcha.
With the Inhumans miniseries, like TV miniseries they did. That one was bad. Oh god, that one was bad. That was the one where they put the first 2 episodes in theaters.
Yeah, I remember that.
For like one weekend for matinees only. But it was a fucking disaster, and it failed. Inhumans failed to replace X-Men. The movie going audience absolutely rejected them, like the concept of Inhumans. So they when they were doing the TV show, the Miss Marvel show, they made a big deal about the fact that at the end of the series, she apparently discovers that she's actually a mutant, and it has like it plays like the X-Men cartoon, the da 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 da, like music behind her. And
that was like months ago, years ago, like a year ago. That was the case, right?
Yeah, that was. But they're she's about to be in the Marvels movie that's coming out.
That's right. Yeah.
They're also putting her show, now that there's a writer and actor strike.
Mm-hmm.
They have nothing for television. They're putting her Disney Plus show
on ABC.
Yeah. So they're about to put it on ABC.
Wow.
And they're going to try to get her over as like the MCU's first mutant. Introduced, at least.
Yeah.
And so they're going for product synergy here.
For once.
Yeah.
After all this time, they're actually, putting some thought into it.
But they're putting thought into it. However, they're also just trying to shoehorn it in, and they realized, oh crap, we already broke everything with Inhumans.
Yep.
So we have to change her origin somehow. And you know what? There is a rumor that I've heard, and now I don't know how valid this is, but apparently when the character was originally created back in like 2012, she was supposed to be a mutant, but that was during Ike Perlmutter's fuck the
Rampage.
mutants. Yeah, fuck the mutants, fuck the Fantastic Four. We're gonna deprioritize them, get rid of them. So I guess they sort of, like, before even launching her, they changed the origin to make her a mutant or an Inhuman. Because that was the plan at the time. They wanted a Jubilee, Kitty Pryde, Spider-Man character for the Inhumans that younger readers could latch onto and be kind of their gateway to the Inhumans. And it never really worked out. So
it's funny because my introduction when I was younger to the Inhumans wasn't even like an early appearance or like Medusa being part of the Fantastic Four. It was
the issues of X Factor.
No, not even. It was the Evolutionary War crossover.
Mm.
Okay, the annuals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I believe, if I remember right, the X Factor annual for that event actually started off in Attila or Attilan.
Yeah.
With Crystal and Quicksilver talking.
It's been so long since I read the Evolutionary War.
It was okay. I mean, it wasn't as bad as some of the more modern events we've been getting, like War of the Realms or
Axe
Swords or Axe.
I mean, and I will give Marvel credit. They let her death last longer than every death in Axe Judgment Spray.
Yeah.
They did. Now, granted, they just tried to make us give a shit about the fact that she was dead.
Yep.
Like literally last Wednesday.
Yep.
With putting out the Fallen Friend tribute issue. The one that Wes and I just reviewed.
I felt your pain.
So literally within days of trying to hook people into giving them money and making them feel emotions for the fact that she was dead, and failing, by the way.
Very much so.
They already, that within literally hours of that book launching, they announced that she's coming back as a mutant. The same way that literally everyone, the minute she died in ASM 26, said
gonna happen.
Yeah. Like everyone, the minute that they killed Kamal, there was the collective response of the internet was initially, oh, okay. Because that was in response to, this is the book that Spider-Man fans are gonna hate forever and will change Spider-Man status quo for forever. That response was, oh, okay. But then once what actually happened was recognized, they go, oh, so this is your way of just bringing her back as a mutant now. And that was also, it was the most telegraphed shit ever.
And the funny thing is, you had a lot of the Miss Marvel stands saying, no, she's dead. They wouldn't do that. And it's like, you obviously haven't read comics for a while, have you?
Right.
Or ever.
Or by a while, I mean for an extended period of time. And I don't know how bad it is to say this, but when I'm finding more heartfelt dialogue in an MMO compared to a comic, you got some problems. Like I went back to playing a little bit of World of Warcraft here and there, and they made some changes to stuff, and they actually put some really heartfelt dialogue in. I was like, how is an MMO background dialogue writer coming up with stuff that's better than a comic book industry?
Craft, skill, pay, perhaps.
Probably not, considering it's Blizzard.
I'm still leaning towards they probably get residuals.
Probably.
I'm betting they get better residuals in the comic industry.
Because case in point, what they did was they added a feature, and it's an in-game shop, not a cash shop, but like an in-game currency shop. And NPCs will also walk up to the shop and they'll have a dialogue with the various sellers. And most of them are just, cliche, whatever. A couple of them are humorous, but this one, they bring back a character that was an old quest giver from way back in the day. And one of the quests he gives you is to go find his wife. And you find that his wife's dead. You go back and tell him, and he goes a little berserk.
Okay. So
what they did was he walks up to the trader and he's like, oh, I need a new axe. And a really nice bracelet. And of course, the vendor's like, new axe, gotcha. And all we sell are nice things. A couple more bits of dialogue. And so who's it for? And he says a name. And the vendor's like, good, it's about time you moved on. They actually gave a character closure, a minor character they actually gave closure to. But meanwhile, you can't have anybody in comic books stay dead. You can't have anybody in comic books have any sort of weight let to their decisions. Everything's got to work out in the end in some way. Yeah. It's like,
well, when they bring back Uncle Ben, that's when you know Armageddon has arrived. It's over. It's Ragnarok.
Yeah, we said the same thing about Bucky. The only people that stay dead are Uncle Ben and Bucky. And now it's just down to Ben.
Yeah, because they brought back Gwen Stacy too.
Yeah. I mean, they brought back Bruce's parents.
Yeah.
That's true.
At least his dad. You never know whether or not Martha and John Kent are alive, depending on the week.
Right.
Depending on the week and the writer.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they will. Fee Machine, they will absolutely do a Ben-verse at some point. And there's going to be a Wolverine Ben. There's going to be a black Ben, a gay Ben.
Uncle Ben?
Yeah, Uncle Ben.
Well, let me ask you this, because you might be onto something with that, Doc. So do you think that might be coming up as some more cross synergy when the second part of what is it, Across the Spider-Verse, whatever it is, comes out, when they decide to disrupt the canon events?
Oh, yeah.
It's possible. I want to give them the benefit of the doubt that they won't be that stupid, but I'm constantly the comic book industry continually proves me to be wrong.
Well, you're talking the movie side with the third movie. The animated ones. I'm leaning towards yes because they haven't done that really yet.
Yeah.
It's also slightly more forgivable with it being a multiverse story.
Yeah. But wait for honestly, I think you have a better chance, though, of seeing them somehow try to incorporate Mark Miller's Trouble into it. If anybody remembers that.
I don't, but I also
You don't
found
remember that?
No, I don't.
Oh, it was teenage Mary and May Parker, or Mary and May, whatever the fuck they're,
right, the kids,
the daughters, or and Ben and Richard getting into like teenage hijinks and like a pregnancy with Aunt May getting pregnant, but it was, but it's not.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, and Aunt May is actually Peter's mom.
Yeah.
But it's obviously it's not canon, and it was through Marvel's Epic line when they relaunched the Epic line in the like mid 2000s.
Yeah, when I hear about Epic line, I think of stuff like ElfQuest.
Yeah, no. This was when they did a Sleepwalker like one shot.
Horny little cook elves.
Yeah, well, what else was in Pele? What else was in the 2000s Epic line? Trouble?
Dreadlock.
Was that? Did that actually come out?
Yeah. And shit.
The Epic Illustrated.
Advanced Dungeons and Dragons.
That came out through the 2000s Epic line? I thought that was in the 80s, the 80s or 90s.
Well, ElfQuest came out in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah, that was the original Epic line. I'm thinking the one where they relaunched the Epic line in the 2000s. And after it had been dead for a long time, it was their first attempt before they tried Icon as like their creator-owned stuff.
Right. Conan? Was there a Conan run in that Epic line?
No.
I think at that point it switched over to Dark Horse.
Yeah, I think so too.
And those are actually very good.
You're gonna make me go look.
Excellent.
You're gonna make me go look through that, aren't you?
So this was you talking about the Epic line where they had like the Dragon Lines comic and stuff like that?
Yeah, there was. I'm talking. That was the original one.
Okay.
And there was a second run of it for new series, new writers to pitch series proposals.
Is my sound coming through okay?
Yeah, you sound good, man. And thanks for joining us. And we're
you're welcome.
now we're joined by Just Pele. And so how you been, man? Last time I talked to you, you were in a bit of discomfort.
Oh no, I had transportation problems. I think a fuel pump's going out of my car. So, but no, I'm doing fine. Everything's going well. I'm looking through Epic titles.
How's the shop been
the
treating
2000s? You? It's slower now. I actually enjoy it. It's what kind of sucks about when we had the boom back in 2021, 2022 is I couldn't just stand and talk to people. I couldn't just sit around. And it's part of the fun of actually, being in a comic shop is you get to talk to the customers, loiter, hang around, and I'm used to paying people to hang around. It's just it's the way shit goes in the comic shop. But they were actually working for like a year and a half.
Right.
So and now we're getting back to loitering again, and I'm enjoying it more. So
always good.
It was like, oh, but you're not making money. I don't give a shit. I don't do that to make money. I don't run a shop to make money.
Right. Like I said, whenever I hear the Epic line from Marvel, I think of the old '80s one with like Dark Star, and I think it was Dark Star.
Red Star, my man. Flashing.
No, it wasn't all that.
No, there was Dark Star or Dread Star.
Yep, Dread Star.
It's called Dread Star.
Then you had ElfQuest, and you had a couple other more. Didn't the Micronauts start there too?
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
Doc,
and
Crimson Dynamo.
Crimson Dynamo. That's the one I was thinking of. That was the one that Daniel Wade. And then there was
Crimson Dynamo
Gun
is an
Theory.
Iron Man villain?
Yes.
And they
But
had
they
an
did kind
anthology
of
series.
Yeah, that was called Epic Anthology that only lasted one issue.
Yeah.
They did Daniel Way's Gun Theory, because that's when Daniel Way was like their next big thing writer. Before he ended up all over the X-Men and Wolverine stuff for a long time. So and that never got finished. The Gun Theory never finished. So that was like 3 issues of a 5-issue or 6-issue miniseries came out, and they just never even finished the last 3. I remember still being pissed about that a couple of years later.
I don't see anything else though.
Yeah, it was Crimson Dynamo, Trouble, Gun Theory, Epic Anthology, and the Epic Anthology had Sleepwalker on the cover.
Okay, all right.
Because I think somebody was doing a Sleepwalker pitch. And they were, the idea was to put it in that Epic Anthology and see what people reacted to. To see whether or not a character could support another shot at a title.
Right.
But they only got 1 issue out, and they killed the whole line, and that was the end of that.
It didn't last long. Didn't last long at all.
The original line, I remember the Elektra Assassin, Havoc and Wolverine's Meltdown.
Yeah.
I love that miniseries. I still have that. So yeah, there was a few good things out of Epic.
It just seems that out of all the imprints, very few have lasted. The only one that seemed to last any significant period of time was Vertigo.
Well, you figure you got about 15 years out of Ultimate. You got.
But would you really consider that an imprint and not just a different Earth?
It was literally its own line.
Fair enough.
Max had about 15 years.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
But it was, only like the first 10 of it was there stuff regularly produced for it.
Oh, okay, yeah.
After about the 10-year mark, it became very rare that you'd have a Max title. Same with like Marvel Knights. Marvel Knights lasted for about 10 years. 2099 lasted for about 10 years.
Did it really?
Yeah.
I'm surprised at that. I never thought of those as going that
I didn't
long.
either. I know it does, but I'm just sitting there thinking of the dates through my mind, and yeah, it did. Holy shit.
Yeah, because
10 years.
Because Doom, they had like the 2099 war thing where Doom took over, like Planet Doom, where he basically took over, and Warren Ellis was writing it in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Right.
Wow. And I think when did 2099 launch? 92? 91?
Something like that. I was still in high school when that came out, so it was before 94.
Yeah, it was Spider-Man 2099, early 92.
Okay.
Yeah, because I remember when that launched, I was at the comic shop on base. I was on the PX and base, and it'd come out, and I was like, what the I flipped through it and I put it back, and I was like, that is bullshit. But it turned out actually to be better than I thought, but
Fiend Machine brings up Marvel Tsunami. Does anybody remember that imprint? Surprisingly good. It didn't last, but there's a lot of great stuff that came out of it.
What was that exactly? Because that one I don't.
That
remember.
was the one where CB Cebulski was kind of headlining it by bringing in a lot of unknown creators and younger creators. Brian K. Vaughan did a Mystique story. Greg Horn was doing covers on an Emma Frost solo series. There was a Venom solo series. It was the first time they had brought a Venom solo series back in a long time.
Oh, it was dark too. It was dark.
It was. They introduced Runaways. Runaways was introduced in as part of the Tsunami launch.
I strongly recommend if anybody that enjoys Venom to go get that Venom series under the Tsunami label, under that marquee, because that was dark. That was dark as shit. It was like, the stuff that we can't. This is the stuff that we can't really publish at Marvel. So. Yeah. And yeah, it was really good. It was really, really good.
They did that. They did a Sentinel miniseries that was very, very of the boy and giant robot.
Iron Giant.
Yeah, kind of a mix between Iron Giant and boy and magic or giant robot anime Gigantor. Manga vein. Which I still like. I have that. There was 2 miniseries for that. I feel like there was one more that was another big deal. Oh, there was a Carnage series in there, I believe. Trying to think if I could think of any other ones.
It sounds like there's some decent stuff that came out of that. It's too bad it didn't last.
Oh, there was the Wolverine Snicked story.
I do remember that. And they didn't read it, but I remember seeing it.
The second ongoing New Mutants title, where they brought in all of the one that eventually turned into New X-Men Academy X. And then just New X-Men. The one that had all of the kind of the teen characters that are still teenagers now in the X-Men. Surge, Prodigy, Hellion, all those characters came as part of that launch. There was a Namor series too, but I never read it.
It sounds like they were trying, at least with that, they were willing to try some new things.
Oh, I think they also had I don't know, that wasn't part of it. For some reason, I feel like the Spider-Man Loves Mary Jane was part of that too. And then it got pulled out and made its own thing. And then it was often and then it was because that was the one that was real popular in like the manga digest size.
Is that the universe that turned into Renew Your Vows?
No, well, not really. I mean, there's a loose connection, but it was like teenage Mary Jane. It was a more Mary Jane focused comic. They were still in high school. It was, obviously it was more geared towards people that like the Tobey Maguire, Mary Jane, and Peter high school relationship for that first 45 minutes of the movie.
Ah, okay.
And it was I remember the Spider-Man Loves Mary Jane title being popular in digest form.
Yeah, I was going to say, is a Tsunami a little bit ahead of its time? Were they going for that now YA audience?
Yeah, They were, but at the same time, they were kind of grabbing at a bunch of different things. They were going for a mature espionage and kind of dark horror theme. It was almost like their first attempt at manga-izing the Marvel Universe. And what I mean by that is taking all of their existing, like a bunch of their existing properties, and make them fit into a different manga genre, like format. So there was the Boy and the Giant Robot one. There's the the Tentacle Beast one. There's the kind of spy relationship story. There's the coming of age teenage girl romance book. There's the the Emma Frost college girl trying to make it on her own, like staying away from her like toxic family, trying to break free of her toxic family and make her own way in the world.
That sounds like an absolute riveting read.
Yeah, I mean,
I can see what they were trying for, because manga does have, and many people have said this on various channels, but it's got something for everyone.
Exactly. They were, and it was a lot of Eastern influence on this Tsunami line, because there was a bunch of I think there was a bunch of Asian creators that got brought in to Marvel at that time for the first time in a while to do work with their characters.
So the real question is, that they actually get this stuff in the bookstores, or they just sell it to the direct market like they usually do?
Well, they mostly, well, you know what? They were doing this at the time when it was like this. Okay, there's been like 3 waves of manga popularity in the States.
Mm-hmm.
There was like an 80s, early 90s one.
Yep, I was wondering
when like Akira and stuff like that started coming over.
That was on the Epic line too, if I remember right.
Possibly, I don't remember, but that was like the first wave of manga popularity in the States, and them trying to take advantage. There was a second wave in like the very late 90s and very early 2000s, like 2000 through like 2002, 2003.
About the time when anime started booming here again.
Yeah,
and in the mainstream boom.
But then it collapsed again in like 2004, 2005. And that's when they were launching it. They like caught the tail end of it right during the bust period. And then it took manga 15 years, maybe 12 years to get back to
the mainstream.
Exactly. Get their foot in on the mainstream again, get back into bookstores, and then it's been just full steam ahead since. So no, Marvel wasn't able to get that stuff into bookstores because they came in with it and they launched it just as the second wave of manga popularity in the States bust. So it was when all the bookstores, basically that was the time when they went, oh, we could just bring everything over. So they did, and they flooded the market. And bookstores got left holding so much. Bookstores and comic stores got left holding so much inventory because they basically brought over everything that they could license. Didn't matter how good it was. But they were being cheap because it was the comic industry coming out of the 90s bust. So they were still being cheap. Wildstorm did a bunch of anime or manga translations at this time. Pat Lee was getting really big. And he was doing original manga for the States.
It's kind of funny too, because I know I've told you, Doc, how my uncle owned a comic store to try to capitalize on that speculative boom of the 90s. And, Christmas or my birthday would come around and be like, here, go through this catalog and tell me what you want. There was always a section, one, because Viz was a thing, and they were doing a lot of manga translations.
Yep.
Even then. But there was always stuff that I was just look at in this catalog going, what is this? That looks freaking awesome.
Yeah. But there was no way to know what was good, what was bad back then.
Mm-hmm.
It was the same thing with anime in the early 90s.
Yeah, because it was still like kind of the fledgling era of the internet.
Yep.
There wasn't as many. Social media didn't really exist yet.
I'm talking even pre-internet.
Oh yeah, I know.
Because a buddy of mine got me into watching anime as knowing it was actually anime, because there was stuff I saw as a kid that it was just a giant robot cartoon. To me as a kid, but it was actually turned out to be something that was licensed from Japan. But at the time, you could rent stuff at Blockbuster, but they pretty much had the same 5 tapes.
Yep.
Akira, Vampire Hunter D, Fist of the North Star, Ninja Scroll, and maybe something else if you were lucky.
Ghost in the Shell.
Ghost in the Shell. But that was also the time where you'd go to a Suncoast Video and they wanted $40 for 2 episodes on a tape, and it was such a... You did not know what you were going to get either, because there's no way to look up reviews. There was no... Like you said, the internet was fledgling and or not around at all.
Yeah, and if you wanted to actually find out anything, you had to log on to the Japanese BBS forum. You had to dial out to a Japanese BBS, connect to that at like $7 a minute, and get your information that way if you read Japanese.
Yeah, I was going to say if you read Japanese. So there was the 80s version of it. 80s, not 80s, early 90s version, and then again the late 90s, early 2000s phase of it. Both were kind of boom and then bust periods. It was the manga and anime industry really getting their feet. They were learning a lot of lessons about the American market.
Yeah.
And the American companies that wanted to do business with the Japanese publishers were learning a lot about the market too. Because a lot of them, they were just bringing stuff over that looked like it might be good. But they had no idea. They would look at sales numbers, but they were looking at them in a vacuum. They didn't understand that, wow, this is selling 400,000 copies in Japan. Yeah, well, it's still like the number 75 selling book. The actual good ones are selling millions of copies. And they didn't understand that. They were kind of looking at numbers in a vacuum. They didn't understand how to convert it. They couldn't read it. And by the time they couldn't get translations before they bought the license for it.
Right.
Because the publishers wouldn't do that. Then years later, and now this cycle is where they got actually publishing really savvy.
Marvel was publishing in the weirdest places in Japan too. I mean, there was Spider-Man comics in Playboy.
Yeah.
For the Japanese market, and it's really, I've got some of those. That's really bizarre stuff. It's like, here's Miss Kyoto, and
have you ever seen the live action Japanese Spider-Man show? That's pretty bizarre too.
Yeah. Yeah. So like the two markets didn't know how to work together the first 2 times. And it's only this last time that the American publishers started understanding what was actually going to sell in America if they brought it over and translated it. The Japanese started understanding what they wanted to send over to America to translate, and what they wanted to bring licensed to Japan. and then the Koreans and the Chinese also got into that game as well. And this time they actually seem to, that's why there's no boom bust cycle this time. It's just industry growth. And Tsunami, man, they were a year too late. Honestly, if they would have managed to hit the market with that maybe a year and a half earlier, it might have actually saved the second wave of manga boom, because then the people that did appeal to might have tried manga that didn't try manga, because they're like, oh, well, this Spider-Man loves Mary Jane, or this Venom thing that I like, or these Runaways characters, or this Sentinel book I like. Oh, it's very influenced by this other stuff that you're also now selling. I'll check that out now. But they got it to market after the cycle was already over. And then it flopped as a result. Yeah. I think the only things that the New Mutants book lasted for a while and managed to get a second volume whenever they did. They renamed it New X-Men, or New X-Men Academy X. And then it just became a New X-Men. Runaways got a second volume, obviously. And that one kind of took off. But most of the rest of them died by about issue 12 to 24.
At least they got a year to 2 out of it. So it's not like it was done in 4 to 6 issues.
You know what? The industry's cycles back then were a lot slower. They gave things the opportunity to get its footing under them, because even at low sales, they were still making money back then.
Right.
And for every one book that they released that was a hit, there was 4 more that they did that were kind of busts. And they looked at it as, okay, because Runaways making a big money at the time.
Right.
So they could afford to lose money on a Mystique book. But even then, that was the first, I think that and Ultimate Comics are the things where Marvel first started getting into their current trade paperback, I guess, release schedule, and getting trades to market for every issue that came out.
It makes me wonder if they saw the manga style of doing things like Shonen Jump, which you could consider a trade paperback, even though it's just all those stories in one book. I wonder if they saw that and go, hey, we can do that, not under really grasping the concept of it.
Oh,
Shonen Jump is the entire line of the Shonen Jump publisher, all in one book. Naruto doesn't have his own book. One Piece doesn't have its own book.
I guarantee that's what they saw, because CB was basically the guy in charge of it, and that's when he was that was around his Akira Yoshido era. That was around the time when they did the Marvel Mangaverse, if anybody remembers that.
Barely,
but yeah.
I remember.
Yep.
I remember Karen Grant did a dope Marvel Mangaverse Fantastic Four book. Oh, it was fucking rad.
The FF is definitely a book, if a manga creator got their hands on it, could do some amazing stuff with, I think. More so than the Avengers or the X-Men or even Spider-Man. Just because they can get wacky with it and it would fit.
Yep.
Yeah. Even like something like She-Hulk or something like that. There's a little bit of latitude there as far as some comedic elements and maybe even some slice of life stuff. That kind of draws the manga crowd in.
The only other one that they could that's also because of my taste in anime and manga, is I also think Iron Man would have worked really well as a manga.
Oh yeah.
The animated was absolutely terrible, but I don't blame the anime house for that. I blame Marvel for telling them what they had to do.
Mm-hmm.
Because because let's put it this way, you know how he meets the guy in the cave in the movie?
Mhm.
I know he does in the original too, but it's kind of different. In the anime, they bring that character back, like
Oh,
from the dead, and he's trying to kill Tony Stark.
whoa.
Okay, check out put up the picture that I just shared.
Gotcha.
This is from the Marvel manga verse that they tried in like 2001.
Wild.
Yeah,
That's different.
Johnny Storm was replaced by a girl. But Annihilus and Ben can, I guess, like get rid of and bring back his rocks.
Uh-huh.
He can like
Yeah.
throw them off of him. Like,
Does he have thing rings?
no, there was no thing ring. Thing ring, do your thing.
Oh man.
Oh, that's bad. Oh.
I like what they're doing with the Sue Storm.
Huh.
Yeah, I like what they're doing with her.
Let me see here. Let me see if I can find.
Well, Reed's definitely on steroids.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Which is a far cry from how they portrayed scientific types in anime and manga from decades prior.
Mhm.
They were almost always, if you go and look at older mecha anime like Getter Robo, which was known as Star Avengers over here, or Mazinger Z, which was known as Transor Z over here, all the scientist leader types were usually old men.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like noticeably old men.
Here I'm gonna try sharing a different image, because here was the cover. That's the book. If anybody ever remembers it from back in the day. Adam Warren wrote it. Karen Grant did the art. And
did it read right to left, or it did? I mean, from back to front, or did
it? No, it read left to right like an American comic book, because it was designed for
American audiences.
Audiences, and to get them into the wonderful $225 price tag, if only.
If only. And they're still screwing the Canadians. Wow, that's a lot.
They did it.
Always pretty solid in the 80s with Alpha Flight.
They did it because they did an X-Men one that was very Asian influenced. There was Udon Studios did Avengers Assemble, where it was basically the same thing as like the current Avengers Mech Strike book.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, let's see. Here we go. I shared that one from Udon Studios. I think Adam Warren did a book. There was an X-Men book where they were all samurais.
Well, that would be cool. I would read that.
There was a Spider-Man book where he was a teenager and he wore short sleeves.
Huh.
Let's see.
And speaking of a team being all samurai, the DC did an Elseworlds book that was essentially that, but the Justice League.
Oh.
And it was set in feudal Japan. It was actually pretty good, if I remember right from reading it. I can't remember
How'd they handle Wonder Woman?
I remember that.
Pretty well actually. They handled everybody fairly well. Even Batman, they made him more
feudal
ninja.
Japan, she'd be like in those little tiny shoes, wearing a kimono, getting Superman his tea. That's
Okay,
no
I just shared the X-Men one. Jeff Matsuda did it with CB Cebulski writing it. If anybody remembers Jeff Matsuda from his working for Rob Liefeld days.
Yeah.
But
I
I
say a
guess
little underwhelmed by the designs, but
I know, I am too. And if memory serves, I think they only did one issue of each title.
Mm.
And a like bookend Omega issue. Because it was a giant flop. I think they did because this is like a follow-up they had done, because they had done like Marvel manga back in the 90s. I don't know if anybody remembers those.
I do remember
top
that.
of my head.
Yeah, I remember that.
And they were basically just sold
because they were based on the animated series, right?
Yeah. No. They were there was a Spider-Man anime or Spider-Man manga and an X-Men manga. Hold on. I think I found one of the covers for the X-Men one. This was X-Men, the manga X-Men number 3.
Yeah, I thought that was that was on the animated one. I mean, it might not have been the exact same story, but
no, because there was an X-Men the animated series that was out at the same time, or X-Men Adventures.
Yeah.
X-Men Adventures was the one that was kind of the same as the
cartoon.
The cartoon.
Oh.
Yeah. And then
it was awesome.
And then they did in the early 2000s, actually the late 2000s, they did the X-Men anime whenever they did, because they did a bunch of anime series.
And Doctor's eated himself from the looks of things.
What was it? I was wondering, is there a specific format to the show, or anything specific?
No, we can talk about whatever comic oriented or even tangentially like gaming.
Well, I was wondering, everybody's familiar with True Believers line of comics, Marvel reprints and whatnot. They're not going to be $1 anymore.
No,
really.
I've pretty sure from what I've gathered from my source that probably going up to $1.50.
That's still not horrible.
Yeah, it's not. That's not terrible.
No,
it's the purpose.
Yeah, it kind of. But the whole point of the True Believers is to draw people in, But I think that they're finally realizing that their older IP was far better than any of the shit they're putting out now. So they might as well just reprint it and make you more with it. So I was talking, Doc, that True Believers is going to be going up from $1 to $1.50. It looks like.
Really?
Yep, apparently so. And because I think Marvel's realized they need to make more money off of the stuff that actually sells.
Well, I know they've been doing a lot more facsimiles.
Right.
To the point where I've stopped buying facsimiles and I no longer count them as additional covers in the original run.
But I think that that's they're going to start trying to milk that a lot harder as far as the older content, the older, the better better material that they've had from decades past that they can exploit
Squeeze some
a
more
little bit
blood out
harder.
of.
Yeah, because it makes sense because what was better, the Dale Keown's Hulk or the stuff that's coming out now. So it's just it doesn't take a scientist to figure out that that people want that, and since they can't make that anymore because of the political influences that be at Marvel, and they have the old stuff, so they'll just push it out the door again.
And the thing is, there's a lot of people for like, even if they are lapsed or haven't clicked, when they see that stuff, it's like that's what looks like a comic book to them, as opposed to a lot of the stuff that's on the stands.
$1.50 even, it's still in the impulse buy range.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. You could buy 2 of those $1.50 books and it still wouldn't cost you as much as a singular modern issue would.
And you get more story. Easy. Is there a reason why they just don't start releasing them just like regularly in order?
That's what they should do. Just start, reprint the whole series.
Like how we had X-Men Legends and Marvel Tales back in the day.
Yeah.
Or not
go
X-Men
back
Legends,
through
classic X-Men.
One at a time. Start with Fantastic Four #1, and just reprint all the Fantastic Fours up to through the first series as the True Believers, starting with issue 1 once a month. And it would sell.
Yeah.
It would sell. And they're hurting so bad financially. It's probably, that's if I were EOC, that's what I would do. I would have already done this.
No,
and I'd be republishing all the 70s, all the Bronze Age stuff. I'd republish all of it. Everything from Avengers to Micronauts to Howard the Duck, every damn thing. So
I do Micronauts.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. There's gold in the Bronze Age. People forget about it.
Oh yeah.
That was the most amazing time for me. I loved the Bronze Age horror. I still do. It's one of my favorite eras in comics. I think I like I would say I probably prefer Bronze Age horror to even EC horror. But
so what do you consider Bronze Age, Pele?
70 forward, 70 to 80. 70 to 83.
Yeah, because I remember I used to work in comic stores. Everybody pretty much agreed that for Marvel, like pretty much mid 70s to like early 80s, that was the sweet spot. Yeah.
Oh, it was the shit, man. That was when things really started rolling. And when you had the X-Men finally, Claremont's X-Men hitting on all cylinders, came out of the gate just running. And Spider-Man finally got out of the kind of hokey kid phase. And especially with the whole thing with the Green Goblin and the death of Gwen Stacy and everything, and it finally grew up. Marvel grew up, and their storylines were mature, not mature. They still had to obey the Comics Code Authority, but it was mature enough to where adults really enjoyed it. And kids could get into it. But that's my favorite. Although I love Silver Age, I love all the first appearances. I buy, I've got a full collection of Silver Age, everything that Marvel published in the 1960s, I've got it. And, but as far as just sitting and reading and enjoying the content, and enjoying the artwork and everything, Bronze Age does it. Hits everything for me.
So would you consider Bronze Age ending for both Marvel and DC around roughly? Well, for me, it felt like DC's Bronze Age ended with Crisis. But with Marvel, do you think it went as late as 87?
No, I think that it already. No, I think that Copper Age was the.
Okay.
It's kind of 83, 84-ish when the Bronze Age and different titles ended at different places.
Yeah.
You know,
kind of agree with what Doc says in the chat about how Secret Wars is where the Copper Age starts for Marvel.
Yeah, that's all. Yeah, I was shooting for around that year. Yep, it was around. Yeah,
And Justin in the chat asks Pele any word on when True Believers might return.
Well, I mean, it's not going anywhere. It's still going to be True Believers. You know, it's just going to be 50 cents more.
Because a couple people
they're still
in the chat
publishing True Believers
thought
now.
They, flat out abandoned that whole thing.
No, I mean, there's no new issues of True Believers coming out, but they're still doing reprints of them. And it's they need to do more. They need to do more True Believers new issues, not just shoveling out the same Spider-Man Venom reprint of ASM 300.
Right.
For the 8th reprint. No, 8th or 9th reprint of it.
Yeah, because I'm surprised they don't do more Fantastic Four stuff. There's just so much there that even with the format they do it now, it's like, just like a one-shot kind of a thing and not continuous. Like there's way too much in the Fantastic Four you could be putting out there because so much of it was conceptual that it's just, yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's that and like I want to get back into the Bronze Age, the Defenders. Still one of my favorite Bronze Age series. It's
some really good stuff there.
The most incredible team. I mean, I'll put them up against anybody. I don't give a shit who. I don't care what team out there. I'll put them against. I'll put them against the
Silver Surfer and the Hulk on the same team. Well, shit.
I'll put them against. I'll put them against the Justice League. Come on.
With those books, with the Defenders, especially back then, they always put them up against something. It was more of like the mystical side. It was almost like their, Marvel's version of Justice League Dark for back in the day. They almost seemed to always have to be tackling something supernatural, but they were always going up against something that challenged them. It wasn't like they could steamroll it over.
It's like, oh, we have to go deal with 4 or 5 Sentinels. Okay. All right, we got to think about this.
What has kind of dawned on me during this conversation, though, about some of the facsimiles and them trying to mine the past for new material or to re-release. I think the issue that they would run into is royalty payments. A lot, and this is stupid. It's good, but it's stupid. Back in the day when reprinting a book was rare and there was no regular reprinting, there was no trade paperbacks were reserved for like the most important stories, which is basically how it was until 2003, like Ultimate line. When the Ultimate line came out, that's when they started doing every issue in trade. A lot of the old contracts for the older creators, because they were written or because they basically never reprinted stuff, when it was reprinted, the creators got a lot of money on reprints. That's why they didn't do them very often, because they were reserved for only the highest selling stuff where they've already made all their money back. They're not gonna even if the Dark Phoenix saga goes into reprint again, they gotta pay Austin, Terry Austin, John Byrne.
Well, they did the Dark Phoenix. They did the Rise of the Dark Phoenix.
I know. Yeah, I know.
wonder if they had to pay for that. I wonder if they had to pay for that.
Oh, I can almost guarantee they had to pay Byrne and Claremont and Cockrum, and Terry Austin, and if not their estates. Yeah. They were rare to do. Getting a book reprinted was rare. So when they did do it, they had to pay that's why Claremont could basically sit on his ass and never write anything for Marvel, because he's still collecting massive paycheck, and especially now that they've gone back and started reprinting so much of the old stuff, a lot of that stuff pays really well on the reprints because it was so rare. So they got a higher residual rate than creators now. Creators now, their residual rate, that's how they actually get paid.
Right.
You know, because they basically break even on the creation of the book. Marvel needs to make its money in the trades. So the creators get almost nothing on reprints because they know it's going to be sitting in you know, in print for basically the rest of our fucking lives.
Right.
So they run it with very low residual rates now, but back in the day, they run them with high residual rates because they figured, well, shit, if you run something that good, you should get a nice chunk of change on the back end. Because we're already making a shit ton. We made our money back 10 times over on the single issue publish. You can make some real money if you write something that's that good that needs it's going to stay in publishing in print forever.
People have asked me at the shop, what do you is that going to hurt back issue sales? Is that going to hurt, like the graded stuff in the back? No. The way that works is that when they start seeing the reprints and they start seeing the old stuff come through, and it's, the old True Believers and stuff like that, people then want the originals.
Yep.
Oh God,
they immediately gravitate to the wall and they're looking, or they go to the boxes and they're looking, and they're like, I really loved that reprint of 180 Hulk 180 181. What's the chances I get my hands on an original of that? I said, well, first you got to take out a mortgage, but we can help you, not with the mortgage part, but with the book.
We can find you the book.
That's what it does. It automatically, people make a beeline for the back issue bins to get the originals, and to get the peripheral books, that are around that, and that haven't been reprinted yet. So it's going to, it's I just don't understand why they haven't. I know that the reprint thing, like Doc just explained, but still, it's leaving money on the table. It's leaving meat on the bone, and it's just it really irks me. And but it's like they go out of their way to try to, cripple the LCS as much as they possibly can.
Feels that way sometimes.
It does. Yeah. It really does.
If just having a cheap version of it hurt the back issue marketability, digital would have killed back issue sales.
Yeah.
20 years ago, because you just get a Marvel Unlimited subscription if you just want to read Hulk 181 or Giant Sized X-Men or X-Men #1.
Yep.
That a lot of times that's exactly what I do. I just log into Marvel Unlimited. I want to go back and reread, the Black Knight series from 1983, and I'm just going to get a wild hair and pull up a series and just read it for the evening. And it's awesome that way. It's an awesome resource for that. But there's always going to be a place for the physical copies, because people are going to want to look at the originals. They're going to want to own the originals.
Yep.
So
because I got a copy of the 3D reprint of ASM 300. I have the first printing of the True Believers. I have the facsimile. And then I finally bought my original first print.
Yep. Mm-hmm. That's the way it goes. It's like you love something, you go back and try to get it. At least, most people go back and get all the iterations of it. And that typically is the way that it works. And it's like Marvel hasn't, for as much as they've put into this industry, it's like you think they would just stop to actually talk to a comic shop owner. But no, No, it's really shocking to me that they, that they'll have all these marketing people and spend millions of dollars over the course of 50 years, to figure out what customers will buy and everything, but they just don't even, for $10, a cup of Starbucks, you could just take a comic shop owner out and say, hey, tell me what you need.
What's selling, what's not.
Yeah, it's like, oh, but no, that would be too easy.
Yeah, and that's funny that you bring it up, because I was talking with somebody about that the other day. And like, even when it comes to like aspiring small publishing stuff, I'm always surprised like when I get asked to look at guys' business plans. And you can almost tell immediately just like by looking at the financials. They haven't just gone around to like 5 comic book shops within like their, like a 30-mile radius. It just asked the question. Like, oh, if I came in with something like this, how many of these would you order? And it's just like, LCS owners just they're pretty much like your eyes, ears, feet on the boots on the ground. And there's such underutilized resource. I mean, it's just like you couldn't pay for some of the market research that you would be able to get out of these guys. You know what I mean? It's just like,
oh yeah,
it's almost never, it's not even like a last resort. It's not even like a first, second, or third. It's just, it never occurs to people just to go in and say, hey, what about this? And
I think it's just because they don't care about that end of the market. It's, they don't care where, they don't care about what happens to the product after they get it out of their, get it out of the warehouse. It's like, oh, okay, well, we sold it. Time on to go to the next one. It doesn't matter that, where it goes in the next day.
So they really only see themselves as business to business then?
I think so. Yeah, I really honestly do. And
I think they just think of themselves as, think of themselves as a B2C customer, and that the comic shop owner is where the chain ends for them.
Yeah.
It's kind of sad that they aren't doing.
It's no longer. Oh, good.
It's kind of sad that they don't do like direct to customer anymore. Because growing up, I had a couple of friends that, part of their Christmas gifts would be, here's the yearly subscription to like the 4 or 5 comic books that they liked.
Yeah.
Didn't have to go to the grocery store, didn't have to go to the gas station, didn't have to go to a comic shop, whatever the case may be. Boom, direct to your house. And if I remember right, as a kid, it wasn't all that expensive. Getting 5 or 6 subscriptions was like $30 for 5 or 6 total subscriptions for a year. You'd think they'd also go back to that a little bit, because
I had a subscription. Actually, I did it in like 2001 or 2002, just before, actually around the time of Claremont's first return to X-Men. When he came back, and he was back for right before X-Men 100 and Uncanny X-Men 381. So whatever year that would have been, like, I think the last it was like a couple issues before where Colossus died, right before Claremont came back. And it was around the time of the 12. So what would that have been? 99, 2000?
Yeah, about that.
I bought subscriptions back then, and they were only like $20 a year.
I tried it with about 4 titles, and I was so horrified by the condition that the comics arrived in that I was like, oh, after that year, I just quit.
Mine came all right. And I think I got the newsstand covers. Hold on, I can actually check. I should probably
also think too. In that case, that may not be how Marvel packaged them, but how the Postal Service treated them.
What they did.
I mean, we get deliveries by alpaca up here, so
the packaging was cellophane, a like tear off, kind of like a bag of chips, that kind of sealing.
Yeah.
But it was, or like, the bagged comics that they would do from time to time, except for it was a cellophane wrapper instead of that soft plastic. And it was on basically half the thickness of a halfback.
Yeah.
And the backing board was another ad. It was printed ad it was like the checklist, so you could send that in to do if you wanted to add another book to your subscription.
Yeah, and it had a no postage necessary thing.
Yep.
On it, and you just do your little check mark things, just throw it in the mailbox, and they send you a bill.
Yeah.
It was cool. It was very streamlined. The only problem, like I said, the condition thing was really the only problem for me, and I think a lot of it had to do with my mail carrier. You know,
I'm betting
you would think that folding the comic over, even if you have to, the standard subscription crease down the center of the book, running north to south. No, mine got folded east to west.
I never had that issue,
and because my mail carrier is complete
idiot
sack of shit back then. Yeah, he's an idiot, and he knew that it's something that I appreciated, so he wanted to ruin it. But anyway, that so I just I just went back to the shop from then on. But if they did a better job of it, it would be better than what they did then. Not even just marginally better. And they would have a really good subscription service like that. But they don't care. They just want to sell to the next link in the chain without having to deal with all the individual customers. So,
you know what? It is still, they still do it.
Oh, really?
Marvel still does it.
Really? I was not aware of that.
I wasn't either.
Yep,
That's
it
shocking.
is.
Subscriptions?
Yep. I'm looking at their website.
Are we going to be horrified by the yearly cost per book?
No, actually, it's not bad. 45% off cover price. It's like
that
$29 a year. Here, I'm sharing my screen.
I'm looking at it right now. Yeah, the next 12 issues of your favorite Marvel comics, free shipping, all domestic subscriptions. Wow.
So
I had no idea. I was clueless. I thought that the digital thing took over for that.
Nope. By the look of it, it is still free shipping on all domestic subscriptions. My understanding is, I believe not Mile High, Midtown is the one that does this for them.
Okay, that makes sense then.
And it was UCS was an expansion of what Midtown was already doing for Marvel and DC's subscription service.
Okay, it makes sense now.
And it comes, basically a bunch of them get delivered to Midtown and they get shipped from there. But I believe they're still doing it with the same cellophane wrapping and like basically quarterback cardstock backing board.
I might do it just for shits and giggles to see how it arrives.
I'm legitimately curious. This might be fun.
I mean, the only thing I'm really buying now is Incredible Hulk. That and ASM, because I'm just, I'm a glutton for punishment. But
I did drop ASM. But
I'm just
off.
Okay.
Yeah, it looks like most of them are 40%.
We'll see how it arrives.
Some of them
do it, and we'll see how it arrives.
Yep.
I mean, it's smart. At least they outsourced it.
There is that.
Looks like most of them are 40%. Some of them are as low as 25%.
Yeah, I'm seeing that. It's typical is $29. Yeah. But hey, if you've got, if you don't have LCS anywhere around and there's no other way, this is it. Anything will get more comics into more people's hands. I'm for it. I just wish the comics were better.
Yeah.
That's a thing. That is definitely a thing.
I legitimately didn't think that they still did it. I just decided to Google.
Yeah,
I didn't either.
I thought they stopped
I don't handle
that,
that
in the 90s, like late 90s, early 2000s. I was actually surprised when you just said, Doc, that you were doing it in the era you did it.
Yeah, I mean, as a lot of the chat is saying, if only Marvel had a story or series worth subscribing to.
Exactly. That's the thing. Yep.
But hey, if you're gonna do it, and you say you're like me, and it's like I dropped everything, so I rarely walk into a comic shop at this point.
That's sad.
I no longer have a pull. There's no need for me to go on a Wednesday.
But you just always the back issue hunt.
I know.
Still the hunt.
But honestly, right now I'm down to stuff that on my back issue list that's either just complete dreck that I'm trying to fill in on like a random run. Like for whatever reason, I decided to do all of the, if you remember around the late 90s, the M-Tech.
Oh, Lord.
With like the Warlock miniseries, the X-51 series, and the Deadlock series.
Well, what was that? What was that Imprint series replacing again? Was that the MC2 line? It was like literally after they canceled one imprint, they started that one right after it.
Yeah, right around the same time, because I think the only thing that was still going from MC2 was Spider Girl at that point.
Yeah.
And they had canceled 2099 around that time too.
Okay.
Shortly after Amalgam or Amalgam comics, however way you want to, let's go with Amalgam, because apparently mispronouncing things on here gets you better views.
I guess
supposedly
causes my OCD to start.
I know
that just made my eye twitch.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, my ass puckered. That's not good.
M-Tech was kind of an X-Men spin-off.
Mm-hmm.
It was all the tech related things. It was like when the Phalanx came back again, and Douglock was there. With it was like the merger of Warlock and Doug Ramsey, and it launched a Warlock miniseries. And something to do with a techno-organic Red Skull. And they did a Deadlock series, but it was a little more horror-ish. And they did a X-51 Machine Man series.
That's interesting.
And it's kind of funny you were saying how they might have done a techno-organic Red Skull. That makes more sense than what they did for Axis.
Oh God, yeah. Where he just somehow magically sewed Xavier's brain onto his, and it worked.
Yeah.
That and it looks like Godzilla and the other kaiju are coming back to the Marvel universe.
Really?
Yeah. That's something that that's something I was talking to somebody about, that starting 2024 there's going to be a whole war of the heroes of Earth versus the kaiju.
They just did that with the Monsters Unleashed a couple years ago.
Yeah, but some of them
licensed kaiju.
Yeah, licensed kaiju. They're going to have the real ones this time, not just the knockoff.
And I just saw something just the other day where it was the JLA versus Kong versus Godzilla.
Yeah. So I guess they're really making a big push for it. Whoever owns the Godzilla
comic
and the
rights.
kaiju. rights, film rights or any media rights. They're apparently doing their rounds.
Because there is another movie in the works or something, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that during the MTech stage, that's when they kind of. Do you remember Morph from Age of Apocalypse and not like from the cartoon, but the one from like Age of Apocalypse and Exiles?
Yes.
They made Warlock kind of proto-Morph.
Oh, okay.
Where for whatever reason he's running around, he has a cape. And I guess he was still like Douglock. Or maybe Doug had finally like died. But yeah. So it was mid 1999.
Here's a question for you, Doc. What do you think will happen if, and just follow the rumor mill, all right, if Apple buys Marvel from Disney?
I don't think Apple buys just Marvel. I think they buy Disney.
But I've heard two different storylines on that. I've heard that Apple wants to buy Marvel and Star Wars from Disney and they're willing to pay off all the debts to do it. Which is appealing because Disney has debt like you would not believe. They have debt.
Yeah.
And, they've got like $34 billion.
No, it's closer to $100 billion because they still
I think that's with interest.
Yeah. But because they bought Disney or Fox for 70-some billion, and that was almost all debt or stock.
Mm-hmm.
What
do you think would happen though? What do you think would happen with Marvel as far as would Apple just cut Marvel Comics?
I think so. They don't have. I don't think Apple would have any interest in being a physical media publisher.
Would they just sell the publishing rights then?
But nobody could buy them. This is where you run into, and this is something that I've gotten into it with Perch a bunch of times on this. The only way that comics works is if you do a Heroes Reborn or Marvel Knights style system where the people that you want that is actually going to publish the book for you, they don't pay you for rights. You pay them to make it. And then you just you take in the profits. Because they've killed the industry too much for there to be any smart money. All you would get is dumb money. The only people, like the idea of you can't do comics the way, say, IDW does with licensed properties. You can't do it. It doesn't work. The math just says it doesn't work because it's never worked. Well, not never. It is so rarely worked that the only way it happens, at least in the American market, but the one thing that has worked financially for all parties involved was the system of Heroes Reborn and the system that they used for Marvel Knights, where somebody isn't like a group of creators or another publisher isn't coming in and saying, I want to pay you for the right to make comics with your stuff. It's where they go out and find a studio and says, hey, we want you to take over this stuff. We'll give you a budget, and it's going to be a very handsome budget. You figure out how to sell a shit ton of copies, but we get the profit. And if you
think that Apple would do something like that?
I don't think that they'd even involve themselves in anything that's small. That's the thing. I don't think Apple would have any interest in, because they would still be a physical product or a physical media publisher if they did that.
Even if they paid somebody else to do it,
doesn't matter. It's still going to get published through Marvel Comics, which they will own and they will have to staff. And whoever's running Marvel Comics at that point, say Apple buys them tomorrow, they put Joe Smith in charge of Marvel Comics. Now, Joe Smith's only job at that point is to go out and find something like Top Cow Studios, whatever, if Jim Lee were to quit DC tomorrow, whatever studio he would create. Artzilla still exists. Man of Action still exists. And they go out and find Man of Action Studios, which is a combination of some writers and artists, and say, hey, we will give you $200,000. Give us 12 issues of each of these, 3 properties. You'd still be paying Joe Smith to run this, and Joe Smith would be the one that would still have to arrange the distribution. He would still have to arrange the printing. He would just hire somebody to do the work. It's like outsourcing work.
Yeah, it's almost a throwback to the early days.
Yeah.
Eisner Studios, or Jack and Joe were doing it.
Exactly. That's the only model of outsourcing of your IP that has ever worked for comics and will ever work for comics. And the smaller they shrink. Now, there were times like Wildstorm managed to do this in the early 2000s. Viz is still doing this successfully right now. However, they're doing it for dirt cheap. Like they're paying peanuts to the Japanese publishers, and Wildstorm did the same thing with their like Warhammer comic that they did. They were paying nothing to the studios, but the studios got a small chunk of the profit, and that's when comics were selling. That first issue of Warhammer sold like 2 million copies. It's still not. It's not counted. The industry still doesn't count that one, weirdly enough. But that when you're able to move that many units, it works. That model works. When you're dealing with like a maximum of $100,000 maximum, where Batman and ASM might get 100,000 issues, they're probably closer to 75 right now. That model does not work for comics. Because there's no smart money that can come in, pay whatever the publisher is making right now in profit, managing it in-house is what they want to make from the license agreement. Well, the problem is that's all the profit.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm just curious. Because I personally did not see a way for comics to survive if Marvel is sold to someone like Apple. I just didn't think that I thought that Apple was I was like you. I thought that Apple was just too big to care about it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing.
Yeah.
That essentially what they would make from Marvel Publishing would be an accounting error.
It's okay. Right now, Marvel Comics, and the same way in DC Comics, with their respective parent companies, Disney and Warner, whatever it is, Warner Brothers Discovery, they are already a rounding error. When you're dealing with a company big enough to buy Disney, this isn't even a rounding error. This is like the shit that they lose in the bathroom that falls out of their pocket when they're, going to get their coffee.
It's the pettiest of petty cash.
Yeah. I dropped a
it's
penny.
They probably pay catering bills that are higher than that.
Absolutely.
I know they do. So, I went to an Apple event, they dropped $4 million on catering.
Yeah.
And that would be the entire budget for a year.
Yeah.
For a publishing house. So
exactly. They're not even thinking about that. They would have absolutely no interest. Now, what they may do, and this is something that I could see Apple potentially doing, is they buy up Disney. They spin all of the properties off as separate companies, sell them, and like Apple TV gets right of first refusal for the next 5 years on any Marvel or Lucas films project that is, that their studios might make for Apple TV.
Right.
That might be something that they'd be interested in. We'll sell it to you. We'll break this all up because honestly, at the end of the day, what does Apple want it for? They want it for content.
Yep.
Right. That's it.
For Apple TV. So maybe they keep Lucasfilm. But does Lucasfilm have value if it's not a in the theater product? I don't know.
Maybe that'd be an excuse for Apple to get into the theater business.
Yeah, I mean, unless Apple decides to get into the theater business now, which I don't. They're about individual, like, personalization of your, access to your media and having that at your fingertips. You and your device as one thing, not go sit in a room with a bunch of other people. I mean, they haven't even built a television.
Yeah. I could see them as far as a just, looking at it totally from a streaming aspect. They wouldn't really, and I think that's where Lucasfilm shines, though, is on the big screen. There are great series. There have been some very good series, but not many of them recently. But they've done all right. But
yeah.
It's not like a $1.8 billion movie release in the theaters.
That's what it comes down to. Do Marvel and DC have value, or Marvel and Star Wars? Do those brands have value for the home entertainment market?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I feel like their biggest value is in theater experience. Now, would Apple TV have a interest in ABC? Fuck yes.
Yeah.
A network show, or network, like a television network. Well, now you have all the content in the world for Apple TV.
Yep.
For like Apple TV Plus. You could have live shows on there, like your whatever Good Morning America, talking about their other shows and other stuff. And maybe people aren't watching Good Morning America on ABC television anymore. Now they're watching it on their phone on the way to work.
Yeah.
They're watching their primetime dramas and comedies at their own leisure. Maybe
I'll tell you what, though. You're mentioning Apple doesn't have a television. If it came down to it, they could have a television within 90 days.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But I'm saying that they've never built one because they built portable devices and personal devices.
Mm-hmm.
Television's more of it's a stationary device and a group watching device. Even their Apple TV, like the Apple TV streaming box, has always been nothing but a hobby for them. And
Yeah.
what is it now? It's still kind of a hobby for them. They tried to get into gaming with it, but Apple Arcade, it was never built or designed to be like an Xbox replacement or a PlayStation replacement.
Oh no.
So, but they could get into that. I'd see them doing that before I'd see them getting into a physical media business or trying to make theater, getting into the movie theater business.
All right. Well, I was just curious your perspective on that. I guess, I've always kind of felt in the last decade or so that comics, new comics, are almost, they're on borrowed time, and it's didn't really want to admit it, but with what's being published now, it's hard not to, and I just can't imagine a world without Marvel and DC comics being published. It seems surreal to me.
It just doesn't sit right.
Yeah,
it's like it's surreal to me that there would be such a thing. It could happen, but
I think also part of it is that I think people just forget the origins of comic books in the first place. That it always was an issue of having excess capacity for another industry, and that was periodicals. It was, hey, well, we got these printers running, so what do we do in the meantime? Hey, we'll take some of those newspaper strips and print comics on them. And then it just kind of lucked into a business after that. And really, other than the whole, I would say, Marvel zeitgeist in the 60s, where it kind of became a movement with those characters and that run, it's like it might have died off quicker if it wasn't for the direct market. It just,
comic book stores were such a weird thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Oh God, yeah. It was everybody's like, wait, what? You have a place to buy old comics? What?
Yeah.
I remember the first time I saw one as a kid was visiting my grandparents on Long Island, and I even went to a comic book store. That doesn't make any sense.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I mean, I remember the very first one. My dad was a comic book collector, back in the 60s. And then I had an uncle that was a comic collector even before then. So I inherited their collections. And, I kind of grew up around it. But the first time I went into a comic book store, I just couldn't believe that such a place existed.
Yeah.
I was just kind of just spellbound by the whole thing. And it was almost magical.
Yes.
And, it's just kind of like, this, I can't believe that this is here. I can't believe that this is what this, that they have this. And I still think it holds a lot of that same feeling today. Not so much from the new content, but just from the legendary old content that is available out there. And you still get like people coming in, just wonder in their eyes. They just look around. They're like, wow.
Oh no, that's what it was for me. I mean, you're definitely right about that, Pele. I mean, we didn't have like necessarily, I don't think it was necessarily a comic book store, but it's like we had just heard one day that there was a dude that was selling like new comics. It was more like comic book apartments. So it's like we went to this guy's apartment. Yeah, you walk in and it's like he's just got like, first of all, boxes up against the wall, some comics sitting up on the ledges. And I was like, it's kind of like when you if any of you guys are wrestling fans, like you hear like Hulk Hogan when he talks about the first time he saw superstar Billy Graham, and he was like, that's who I want to be when I grow up. And that's what it was for me. I said, I want to be this guy. I want to be this guy right here. And only have satiated that dream within the last year or so. But I was like, yeah, I want to be this guy right here. And I think you're right. There is that magic of And I think it's that magic of collecting, of being a hobbyist. Like when you're first exposed to it and you experience it, it makes such a connection with you that you have to do more of it. Like you got to learn everything about it. And there's something about the person that introduces you to it. There's something magical about them as well. That is kind of like, it connects with you in a real way. So it's something
it's really odd that way. Yeah. It's I get people like that all the time. It just, first time they get bit by the comics bug, and they're sitting there by the boxes, and I've got a lot of not all books are bagged and boarded. I've got some that are 50-cent issues that aren't. It's mostly because of the fact that how much it costs to bag and board,
right?
$500,000, $500,000 comics from the 70s, and 80s. It's like, come on, But
in a lot of cases,
from one book.
In a lot of cases, the bag and board is more valuable than the comic.
Oh yeah. And they just sit there and they're reading, and they're like, "Oh, aren't you going to say anything about them just sitting there reading?" No, hell no. They want to sit there and read that whole box. That's fine with me because they're going to end up buying stuff.
There you go. That's right.
And I want the people in there. Nothing is more lonely than an empty comic book store.
Tell me. Yep.
You want at least half a dozen guys digging through the bins.
And there's something about digging through the boxes. There's something about that activity and finding something. I think you and I talked about this before. And it's that art and that thrill of discovery. It's like, and you just can't beat it. Yeah.
That's why you don't keep everything in perfect order.
Yeah.
If you keep everything in perfect order, then there's not the wanderlust. There's not the search. And it's kind of, you group it. It's kind of like, all the comics that start with M are here. But there's no telling what you're going to find in there. It's just all, and I'm talking about the 50-cent boxes, the dollar boxes. It's just like, it's whatever you find in there. That's it. And if it starts with an M, it's in this section more or less. And so people are in there digging. They got the shirt sleeves pulled up. And they're looking around everywhere. And and you always put a couple of gems out there. Like a $10 or $20 book. You put it out there. And if somebody finds it, hey, good on you. You're lucky. But,
so how much of that do you think ties intimately into like the flea market or like the yard sale experience in general?
There's a lot.
Oh yeah. A lot. And you want to capture that.
Yeah.
You want to mix in some gold in there, that gets people back.
All of it is about appealing to what's ostensibly the treasure hunt mentality.
There you go. Yeah.
Finding buried treasure. Everyone wants to find buried treasure. Everyone on the planet. They all want to find.
It may not sound like much, but you put a high grade copy of Alpha Flight #1 in the dollar box. You can get some reactions.
Yep. Now, by the way, so apparently this is we do have a little bit of some breaking news that was just announced at SDCC. Speaking of going back in time, the truth behind Nightcrawler's birth will be revealed in X-Men Blue Origins #1. Did they really need to revisit the fucking Draco?
Why?
I mean, really, you're going to revisit fucking the Draco and, Azazel and Mystique throwing a baby off of a waterfall? We're really...
Did they mistakenly believe that storyline was popular?
Do they who revisits Chuck Austin? Nobody intelligent revisits Chuck Austin ideas. They pretend they didn't exist. That's why we've never seen Annie Galagazagazaboo-boos or whatever the fuck her name was since whenever apparently she was his self-insert and he really wanted to fuck Havoc.
Yeah.
Oh my lord.
But yes, so apparently Nightcrawler, who's currently running around dressed as another Spider-Man,
Yes. Ugh.
for reasons, is going, which is already really fucking retarded,
Yep.
is now their big way to make him matter more is to revisit the most, probably one of the two most reviled arcs on, because you're right there with, you got a couple of X-Men arcs all in a few years there. They're absolutely hated. You have the Draco. You have the one where with Kaya Asayama on art where Angel fucks Husk in the air above her mom. Well, everybody's looking up at the air at them fucking in the air.
Yeah.
And finally, Dino Rachel.
Okay. Apparently, I blissfully missed that one.
You missed that one? Oh, that was when Alan Davis. It was during Claremont's second return to X-Men. And Alan Davis was drawing it for a little while. And they turned the X-Men in Uncanny X-Men they finally turned them into the XSE, which was, Bishop's, the Xavier School Enforcers. And they were mutant cops running around. And they actually had fucking badges. And at some point it had something to do with the Savage Land, and Rachel turned into a dinosaur.
I don't have that whole run yet, so yeah.
It was abysmal.
Sounds it. It's a sound. That's just
So
Let's
bad.
see if
I only picked it up for the Alan Davis art. That's it.
Yeah, hold on. We will.
Well, Doc's
I'll
looking
show
that up.
you.
That is the Elseworlds cover I mentioned earlier that I have on screen.
Because that's the
Oh,
run
okay.
where Xavier and Wolverine's like psyches merge or something like that.
No, I think that was Original Sin.
Oh, okay.
Here, let me share this because
That's a cool looking cover.
Yeah, from what I remember reading, it was a pretty good story too. It was one of the better Elseworld stories I had read.
Yeah, the Man of Folded Steel.
Okay, I actually do have this one. I just blocked it from memory.
Yeah, Dino Rachel,
Yeah.
where she started turning into a pterodactyl
Oh God.
or a velociraptor. I don't fucking remember. It was really, really bad. That was the arc where I think it was that's when X-23 first shows up in the X-Men book outside of NYX.
Okay.
Because she only had appeared in NYX up until that point. And then she shows up wearing the Fang costume.
That's right.
Right.
But yeah, Dino Rachel is considered one of the three most abysmal runs. You had Husk. Now you could also possibly add in X Stacy or Stacy X, the lizard hooker, the lizard mutant hooker.
What was Stacy X about? I never understood that the few times I came across that character. What?
She had a power of pheromones.
Yeah. Yeah.
So she decided to be a hooker and own a mutant brothel.
Yep.
That was one of Joe Casey's more disappointing ideas. I generally love everything that Joe Casey does. That was bad.
It sounds like he was just sort of fulfilling his own personal fantasies there.
Yeah, I feel like, well, you know what he was trying to do? He was trying to do a lot of a different take on what Grant was doing at the time over on New X-Men. So he did that whole X-Corp thing in Uncanny X-Men, Stacy X, where it was like the whole mutant culture, mutant business. He was taking his X-Corp was very, 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 very obviously like his attempt at shoehorning the X-Men into what he had already been doing over at Wildstorm on Wildcats version 3.0 with the Halo Corporation as the 21st century superhero. So it was very obviously he was trying to do the same thing, but this time with X-Men.
Right.
But yeah, Stacy X was, I guess she was meant to stick around longer than she did, but she never got over. She was kind of very groan inducing from day one, because we really didn't need mutant hookers. I mean, we didn't. Let's just be honest here.
Well, I mean, yeah. If you really want to get your freak on, there's nothing more strange than that. But
yeah, but yeah, her Uncanny X-Men 399. She had seduction powers and seduced Angel because reasons. They never, I think she was just trying to be a gold digger. I legitimately think that's where he was going for, what like Joe Casey was going for. Like, yeah, she's a hooker after the rich guy's money.
Well, that's not surprising.
And maybe he was going to do like a Pretty Woman thing.
I was going to say
Pygmalion.
But
the hooker with a heart of gold gets redeemed in the end.
Yeah, exactly. But but Joe left X-Men too quick, because he was only there for let's see, 396 or no, 394 through 409.
Apparently they didn't like his take on the mutant hookers, and they moved him along.
Well, I think he started getting into a lot of fights with the group editor. His stuff was a little deviating too much from what Morrison was doing. So, and it didn't really connect at all to what Grant was doing over on New X-Men. And so I think the company was the publisher was kind of trying to force him into, I guess, working a little more like that. And he was just like, nah, I don't think so. I quit. And then they brought in Chuck Dixon because he was cheap and he answered the phone.
And it makes you wonder how many jobs in the comic industry happened because of that.
Yeah,
a lot.
Yeah, a lot.
and honestly, as much as I like Sean Phillips' art, especially with Ed Brubaker, he was also really good with Sean was really good with Joe Casey too. It doesn't really fit next book.
Yeah, I can see you say that. Yeah.
I think the other part of Uncanny, the problem that it ran into is that there was only 3 issues, maybe 4 issues with who was supposed to be because you were supposed to have Grant and Frank Quitely over on New X-Men. Uncanny was supposed to be Joe Casey and Ian Churchill. Ian was only there from 394 through 396. He only did 3 issues. So not really it really, it didn't click. Which I think is also part of the problem because he ended up stuck with Tom Rainey, Danny Mickey, Ashley Wood of all people. I mean, Ashley Wood's art is interesting, but it's not superhero art. I mean, if you're at all familiar with Ashley Wood's art, it's very, very, very sketchy.
Yeah, it's more like magazine type or manga art.
I don't even know if I'd call it that. It's more like experimental. like fucking impressionistic.
Okay. It's kind of like Art Adams, but like more out there. Much more out there.
I wouldn't say it's anything like art. I'd say it's...
Well, I'm thinking about, like the Long Shot series, stuff like that, where they had that was kind of... Anyway.
You know what? I don't see... I don't see a similarity. I see... Let me see if I can bring up some of Ashley Wood's X-Men, because it was really strange. And it was like it was all done.
Would be more like Bill Sienkiewicz.
Yeah, I'd say it's more like Bill Sienkiewicz.
Yeah. Okay.
You
remember the one series that we like to talk about, the Havoc and Wolverine,
the Meltdown,
series. Yeah,
it would. Yeah. Like there's Ashley Wood. Think about it like a much more impressionistic Chris Bichello.
Yeah, okay. I can see that. Yep, I can see that.
Almost like it would be a better fit for Sandman. DC.
Yeah. It really would have been. Here is it or who's the dude that did Hellboy?
God, I can't believe my mind just went blank. Mignola.
Yeah, Mike Mignola, Bill Sienkiewicz, even maybe a little bit of Larry Stroman, and very, very, very impressionistic and sketchy Chris Bichello.
Very gritty.
Yeah.
Okay. Kind of puts me in mind of the Punisher, the Punisher UK stuff from magazines, from the 70s and 80s. Because they were real gritty like that, all black and white, and they look fairly similar. It's not quite Judge Dredd, but not too far off.
Yeah, there was so much of that issue of X-Men, like the Ashley Wood issues, that I still have no idea what the hell happened on the page. Yeah, let me see if. Okay, I got one of Nightcrawler that I'm sharing now. That's a little more understandable. Like you could tell what the hell's going on a little bit. Or you know what? I'll try sharing this one instead. I guess we'll wait. Oh, but yeah, this is, I mean, I can barely tell what the hell's going on here.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
That's
But that was the same thing like when
Wolverine, but
yeah.
That does look like Mignola.
Yeah, it is. There's another one.
Yeah, very Mignola reminiscent.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it's doesn't really fit for an X-Men comic.
No, that's Sandman. That would be a really good Sandman book, though.
Yeah. A lot of watercolors, a lot of sketch with some color just kind of thrown on top.
Yeah.
So why does Sienkiewicz work with New Mutants then? Like I never liked it as a kid, but it really has a cult following or a popular following.
I
hated it as a kid, but when I became an adult, I appreciated it.
Mm.
Especially like the whole thing with the bear.
That's one everybody always brings up. Yeah.
Oh God.
Like this page I'm sharing right now is literally from, I think, Uncanny X-Men 400.
Is that Psylocke?
No, that's Stacy X. That you can't even tell is Stacy X.
Oh, how bizarre.
Because there's no texture to her skin, so you can't tell she's reptilian.
Right.
And it looks so, honestly, it looks amateurish.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say that well, I don't know what year this was, but it feels very much like there was this animated show used to be on MTV, Eon Flux. I'm not sure what's giving out these vibes, but it feels like that kind of.
Oh, I loved Eon Flux.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it's more like that than anything it should be in a superhero comic. That's bizarre. Yeah, it's
like you said too, Bailey. The art would work for Sandman or even Hellblazer.
Yeah, because those are hero books. They're more fairy tales.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Ashley Wood was the artist on Automatic Kafka. And over at Wildstorm, and that was wonderful. See, here's the thing though. Okay, so you're looking at this piece of Ashley Wood art. It's interesting-ish. It's unique, or this piece here, or this piece here, and all of these were from literally like 2 issues after this. Jarring as hell.
Very.
Is
that Brett Booth?
No, this is Ian Churchill.
Churchill.
You almost can't get more diametrically opposed styles.
Mm-hmm.
Especially in a short period of time, because that was one issue. Let's see.
It's like, you can tell actually what's going on. The
There's
coloring
detail
is actually
and
quite good.
The coloring is
no
nice.
kidding.
It doesn't look like someone just threw color at the page.
Yeah. Hold on. Where is it? Was it 394? No.
So now what's causing the editor to make a choice like that, though?
Availability.
First guy that answers the phone. I feel like that's what it is. It's the first person to answer, to pick up the phone.
And they'll work for $20 a page.
Now, I can guarantee Ashley Wood was more expensive than $20 a page. And like this was, hold on, I will share this. All right, this was interior pages from like the issue right before this. This is Tom Rainey.
Mm-hmm.
And this was one of the Ian Churchill covers, but Sean Phillips did the interiors. It's like they had so different styles.
Yeah.
From issue to issue, it was unnatural. And you didn't know what you were getting from issue to issue.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Yep.
Because honestly, even the Grant Morrison issue, like New X-Men, it started suffering when on the issues where Igor Cordy, after Ethan left the book as like one of the fill-ins, they had Igor Cordy doing the fill-ins for Frank Quitely, and I don't remember, one of the fucking Jimenez, Jorge maybe, no, not Jorge, Phil Jimenez, I think. Oh wow,
what is that?
Probably Javane's air conditioner, maybe.
Some feedback.
Something,
but no, I mean, so jarring. But sorry, I went off a tangent.
No, that's all right.
That's kind of what we do.
I was going to comment. I can't. Well, I've got to leave here for too long.
So do I.
But
about 15.
One of the things that I wanted to address though was the back issue market right now is very active. It's like popping. It's really popping.
I got a buddy of mine who buys graded books frequently because he's single and has a good job and doesn't know what to do with his money.
Yeah.
And every time he comes over, he'd be like, "Oh, I got this." And for a while, it'd only be like maybe 1 or 2 books because I'd see him every couple of months. Last couple times I saw him, it's been 6, 7, 10 books. He's been picking up.
People are letting go of stuff, and a lot of the people that were speculating during 21 and 22 have decided they need that capital back. And we're talking about like a lot of the people that came from the card world, and a lot of people that, are buying, that bought on using credit, and they're now starting to have to pay interest on that. They're, you're seeing a lot of stuff, getting sold now. So it's a good time to buy. And especially in the auctions, to buy it now is not so much. But if you see something on eBay, though, it's an auction and something you've been wanting, jump in, because the prices are, there's some exceptions. Some stuff's high anyway. It's always going to be high. But other stuff is, going for half or less than what it was at its peak. So it's a good time to buy for availability as well as pricing. So
you know what? You're not wrong, because I just found a book that I was putting off for a little bit. I don't want to say it because I don't want anybody else.
Oh,
to
jump on it. Yeah.
Yep.
But
yeah, I mean, it's been interesting.
Yeah, one of the single-digit issues of Uncanny.
But yeah, the
that I
prices are
still need.
good, and attractive again, and the market's moving. It just had to find its price points, and they didn't. People that can withstand, the drought, and they're not dropping their pricing, and but the people that they've reached their pain point in regards to interest and having to pay that leverage, to use leverage, they're deciding that they just rather sell. So, and the market will move at the right price. And I've been making a lot of buys, early ASMs, and a lot of I bought 2 complete Silver Surfer runs from the 60s. The one in low grade, one in high grade, and early Fantastic Fours, early, just early anthology type stuff that's hard to find. Horror anthologies, stuff like that from the 50s. It's now just magically available now. And so it's moving, market's moving, and it's kind of like the pricing is it's funny because if you completely removed the boom, the pricing is kind of like it started where it left off. So you could just pretty much remove almost the entire boom market and just fit the 2 pieces together between 21 and 23 here, or 20 and 23, and it's like it lines up almost perfectly. So it's just like there was just a big corona anomaly. People got stuck at home with free money from the government,
free money and nothing to do.
If any of those folks that are a little over leveraged on credit and happen to be holding a EC Comics Crime Suspense Stories number 22, I will take it.
Oh yeah.
Or number 18 or number 6.
Yep.
I don't know why. Yes. Well, 22, everybody knows why I want that one.
Yeah, everybody knows why. But yeah, I mean, I love EC. It's so good. It's so good, but I wish stuff like that got published today. But oh well.
Yeah, that's one thing I do appreciate about both the French and Japanese comic industries is it's not just one kind of story. It's not just superhero stories. You want horror, they got horror. You want,
oh yeah, the manga market is huge.
Crime drama, you got that. You want sci-fi, you got that. You want a comic book about sports, they got that.
Well, remember, Chuck Dixon also did comic books about baseball.
He did.
He had this thing with whatever his weird sexual fetish was, or baseball. He did a lot of weird implied sexual fetishes in his stuff and a lot of baseball. So your mileage.
I will say the really huge keys that your FF number 1, AF 15, stuff like that, they are not dropping. There's a little bit of adjustment, maybe 20% off the highs, but they're about the only ones that aren't like getting chopped in half.
Yeah, the same buddy I mentioned, he's got a couple books that he calls, God damn it, I should have gotten them when I can. Yeah. And certain things like Uncanny number 1, as far as he's concerned, he'll never have a copy of it. Even low grades, he said, are out of his price range by a lot.
0.5, is still like a $5,000 book.
Yeah.
Or, no, I'm not thinking of. No, it's about a $2,500 book.
Yeah.
So, it's like I rode Doc like a racehorse. I was like, Doc, you need to get it now, or you're not going to get it.
And I did, and I bought a pretty nice looking 1.5.
Yeah.
that presents really well. That
it looks more like a 2.5 or 3. It looks nice. And I rode him like a racehorse. I'm like, dude, it's going to be gone. You're not going to be able to get it, and he did.
I broke down, I bought it, and never looked back.
Absolutely not.
I think I needed the peer pressure.
Yep, you did.
Yeah, sometimes that happens.
Because you also,
what did you pay?
I paid $2,600.
Yeah, it's double that now. So it's more than double that.
Yeah, it was up at almost
double and a
87
half
for a while.
Yeah.
So it was almost at 3. It was a little over 3 times for a period. Now it's back down to
6,000.
Yeah.
That's down to about $6,000. Yeah. But it's there are moments that you've just got to do that, and it hurts. You just rip it off like a bandage.
Well, I did the same thing with my X-Men, the 510 partial sketch variant.
Yep.
The J. Scott Campbell SDCC one. I spent like $2,100 on that. And that's only a 9.0, but I remember we looked at the grader's notes.
It's fingerprint.
It was like finger bends, nothing color breaking. And I'm like, it's a crack. It's a CPR waiting to happen to go to a 9.6 or a 9.8.
Yeah. It's just no brainer.
Yeah.
Absolutely no brainer. The last one of those that sold in a 9.6 was,
close to
$7,800. $7,800.
Yeah. And the last 9.8 went over 10.
Yeah. Oh, the last 9.8 was 14,000 rather.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's it's painful. People talk about that all the time. I hear it every single day, and I'm like, a lot of stuff's just not going to get cheaper. It's going to adjust a little bit, but it's not going to be substantially cheaper. You're still in when you're talking about big keys, real scarcity. I'm not talking about, there are 10,000 copies on the census or anything. I'm talking about real scarcity where you've got a few dozen copies that have ever been graded. That book that Doc is talking about, there's less than 4 dozen copies of that graded.
Yeah.
And
there's probably only 250 of them total because there was only 500 originally.
Real scarcity.
And half of them got damaged in transit because they were for Heroes Con and for SDCC. One of the 2 shipments never made it because they got all damaged because the truck wrecked.
So real scarcity like that, real hot books that are scarce, stuff like that. It's, it's pretty much just choose your window because you're only going to get windows. You're not going to get, big breaks in the book one way or the other. So, it's, I hate to tell people that because there's, people that they want that, they want that high grade, FF number 1, they're people that have means, but they don't want to crack out $180,000. I'm like, you're not going to be able to dodge this one. You're just going to have to eat it if you want it.
That or hit the lottery. And by hit the lottery, I mean either literally hit the lottery or find, some guy literally just emptying out his grandfather's shit.
Or start selling stuff.
That's what happened to a friend of mine. He was doing some HVAC work in an old house in upstate New York. And so they had to replace all the insulation in it as they're pulling out what was actually like newspapers from the 20s and 30s. He pulled out a Fawcett comic from 1945. A Captain Marvel comic.
Yeah.
From December 1945. And he's telling me this. I'm like, you need to right fucking now find which comic store in your area is reputable as well as does comic grading and get that damn thing graded. He's like, why? I'm like, because going by now with it ungraded, it's about $1,000 book in the condition it's in.
Yeah, we get a press and clean in the press, and you don't know. You don't know. You could be talking about a tripling of value. So it's just all about condition. And there's just some, like I said, some stuff out there. There's just not enough of them to really, set a permanent market on value.
Right, and something like that falls into that category.
Yeah. There's some books that we virtually don't even have anymore. There's a set number of collectors that there's Avon Press did Eerie #1, which is the first horror comic in 1942. I think it was first official horror comic. I think it's 1941 or 1942. And during war, or right before, I think it's 41 because it was right before the war. And it's got Nosferatu on the cover. And there's like 14 copies in the world.
Right.
And all 14 of them are owned by people, and people know who have those copies. And they're only going to come to market when that person dies.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, that's how weird it gets sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, where once you get into real rarity, that's when you're like, oh, that's the one this guy has.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
the one this guy has. Every collector on the planet knows. Well, and every serious collector knows
who has what.
Yeah. There's stuff that just doesn't, and there's stuff that vanishes. There's a lot of stuff that will vanish into collections, never to be seen again.
Yep.
Yeah. There's stuff I've got that you'll never see again because they're just, they're gone. I'm passing it down, and my son's going to appreciate comics if I have to break his head open, and it's going to stay family collection. But it's things like that. That's what's also talking about the love of comics and the incredible kind of magic around it. It's kind of like that too, that you can own a part of something that is so hard to find, so hard to trace, that's so limited. It's like owning a copy of Action Comics #1. That's history.
Yeah. Once you get past a certain point, and once you get past, I would say, the 60s and get into the 50s and the 40s, and you're really looking at more than just comic history. You're looking at history in general.
Yeah.
Cultural history.
Yeah.
Cultural history. I mean, granted, though, we're already at the point where, a Sony Discman with ESP is in museums, by the way. If you ever want to feel fucking old.
Oh, I do that to myself all the time whenever I decide to play some retro video games.
Right.
Like the mini disc player is in museums.
Yeah.
That's funny. I've still got one. It's over here on my shelf.
I do too, somewhere. Fucking. Well, I gotta get going, guys.
Yeah, I do too.
It's been a good time.
Tonight. Yeah.
Thank you for the invite, man.
Oh yeah, you're welcome anytime, dude. Both you and Javane. And Doc.
It was great to talk to Javane again. I don't get to see him nearly enough.
Man, it feels like it's like once a year now.
I missed you, man.
Same here.
You guys are on the permanent invite list, just same with Doc and Aaron Sparrow and MVP. I'll let you know when I'm doing it.
Talk once a week, and we've never talked almost in the last year. So
yeah,
it's nice to get to talk to Doc again.
Fuck yeah. Awesome to talk to you too, brother.
It's nice getting you guys all in the same place at the same time. But I want to say thanks to the chat for coming and hanging out. And regardless of how long you stuck around for, if you were only around for a few minutes or you hung out with us the entire time, it's appreciated. And hopefully I'll be doing one of these again in the next month and a half or so. That seems to be the scheduling. What with my work schedule and things like that. So thanks again. Glad everybody was able to make time tonight, and we will talk to you soon.
All right.
Take care.
Peace out. Take care.